What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk here on DSM Media's Turf Talk YouTube channel. On today's episode, we are going to be predicting the upcoming 2023 NFL Player Awards, MVP, Offense Player of the Year, Defense Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all of that and much, much more. So, guys, drop your predictions, drop what you think of our picks in the comments on the YouTube channel along here with us. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. The NFL season is finally here. It just feels like it's been a long day of predictions, man. Playoffs, division winners, Super Bowl. Now we're doing, player awards. Tonight, we got to predict the game.
Yep.
There's a lot going on, man, but it's fun. After this, no more hypotheticals. The ball hits the ground, and we get to discuss it all in real time, week to week. But it's going to be a lot of fun this season.
Yes, sir. I cannot wait for tonight to kick off. More importantly, I can't wait for Sunday just to have the NFL back completely. But tonight is a great kickoff. You got a great matchup, two high-powered offenses going at it. And we'll obviously get to break that down a little bit later, make our predictions there. But yeah, this is kind of the icing on the cake of the offseason. Like, this is the end. This is the finish.
Yep.
And we're rounding up all of our predictions right here and on this one show for you. So it should be fun. It'll be interesting to see who we pick. It never ends up being like the guys that you think it is. So
yeah,
and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's spot on. So who knows with these picks? We'll see how it goes.
I went on DraftKings Sportsbook when I was making my picks to kind of see what the value of somewhere and the odds. And I would say outside of two of my selections, they're a little outside the box, right? But we'll see how we go. Let's start with the rookies, man, because we'll save the MVP and that stuff for last. Starting with the rookies, offensively, who is your offensive rookie of the year this upcoming season?
Yeah, so I actually went with Bijan Robinson here as my offensive rookie of the year, running back down there in Atlanta. I know it's a little questionable given their running back room. Algier went over 1,000 yards last year. How much are they going to be willing to just give all the carries to Bijan? But I do think he is that good. If they're going to draft him in the top 10,
that's the thing, man.
They're going to use this guy a lot, and he's going to be a safety blanket for Desmond Ridder, a young quarterback who we have no idea what he's going to do. Arthur Smith, he's going to run the hell out of the ball just like they did last year. And I think Bijan's going to be a big component of that. When you think about Bijan Robinson, usually the players with the best chance are the rookie quarterbacks. But I don't know if any of these quarterbacks are in the proper position to just have a significantly successful year, to the point where if Bijan eclipses 1,000 yards, is that season better than a rookie running back eclipsing 1,000 yards? So from that standpoint, that's why I went with Bijan. Although if I had to like put it in order of like quarterbacks behind him, or like the quarterback that I think is maybe in the best position, I don't know. I kind of like CJ Stroud's situation in the Texans. There's no expectations there. So like, you come in third or second in that division. Second, I know that sounds crazy. I don't think they will, but they come in third in that division. That could make his resume look great, right? With that Texans squad. We'll see. There's a lot of guys with potential down there. Dameon Pierce, Nico Collins, a lot of hype coming out about him. Bryce Young, Carolina, not a bad situation. I am concerned with his size, man, playing the whole season and seeing how he adjusts to the NFL. Anthony Richardson was one I thought about. He's interesting up there in Indianapolis. I just don't like the Colts. I don't like what they have around them. I actually like the Texans a little bit more, considering Jonathan Taylor. He's up in the air on that Colts team, so couldn't go with him. If I had to give you like one of my sleepers, I would probably go with like a Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah,
even as far as like a Zay Flowers. I'm high on Zay Flowers. I've heard all the talk. I like his fit in that Ravens offense because I feel like he's like a niche player. He's going to be that possession guy in the slot that's just going to get a ton of looks from Lamar Jackson. But no, I'm going with Bijan Robinson ultimately here.
He is the favorite, and you could still actually get him at good. He's so much greatly favored over the other guys. He's like plus 245, but still that's like good value. It's not like he's like running away with this thing at like minus 150 or minus 200.
Yeah.
Bijan is where my eyes first went. I agree with you. The fact that Atlanta, made that selection at that point inside the top 10,
right?
It's
wild.
like you have to utilize him. So many people are sitting here, well, they still have Algier and they have Cordaro Patterson and blah.
Right.
Bro, if they made that pick and don't use him the way they should, all hell is going to break loose in Atlanta.
You already have 2 top 10 picks that you're not using correctly. You can't add a third one to the mix.
Exactly.
Man.
So that's where my eyes went. Jahmyr Gibbs was another one. He's going to be showcased tonight. We'll see what he looks like. And another sort of running back reach that a lot of people were mocking a little bit on draft night. But I went with one of the quarterbacks, and I went with the third guy that you talked about here, Anthony Richardson, a little bit outside the box. The only reason I go with him, I look at the other quarterbacks listed, and Bijan, you're right. If Bijan goes for like 1,100 yards, 1,200, maybe 8+ touchdowns, like he is going to win it. But to me, if they don't utilize him well, if Atlanta stinks and Desmond Ridder isn't it, right, and they struggle to run the ball a little bit this year, I don't foresee that happening. But I look at the Colts as a bad team. I don't like their future. I do agree with you. I like the position CJ Stroud is in more. But in terms of playmaking, in terms of statistics, in terms of the wow factor, the clips we're going to see, I do think you're going to have moments this year with Anthony Richardson. We know the athleticism. We know the size, the speed, the arm talent, and arm strength. I think you're going to see a bunch of wow plays from a bad team where if he just has free reign this year, he's going to put up numbers that don't equate to wins, but numbers where – you talk about CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Are they going to put up similar wow factors? I'm not sure. So a little bit outside the box with me with Anthony Richardson here. So that's where I went. I do love your Bijan pick. For Defensive Player of the Year, I'll throw this right back to you because I'm going to be defensive rookie. Yeah, defensive rookie of the year. Excuse me. I'm going to throw this right back to you in a second. It's Jalen Carter. I mean, I've preached it all offseason along with you. I've talked about it multiple times this week, how I think this kid, he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but I do think it will be in the conversation, the top 10 type of conversation for a Defensive Player of the Year, let alone Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to have that big of an impact. I think up the middle, surrounded by guys like Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat and his former teammates at Georgia, Fletcher Cox. As long as he gets the snap counts and the playing time he deserves here in Philly, if he's that dominant, he's going to have 7, 8+ sacks. He could reach double digits. He can stop the run. I think he's an absolute game wrecker. I believe he is the second or third best odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year right now. I'll go with Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I think he's second behind Will Anderson, which understandable. The ultimate reason why I went with Jalen Carter over Will Anderson, the edge rusher, which I do think edge rushers have a little bit of an advantage over, say, a defensive tackle. But the reason I went with Jalen Carter over Will Anderson is simply because Jalen Carter's on the Eagles. It's going to look a lot better. Like that's the simple truth. If he's a standout player on the Eagles, it's a lot different than being a standout player on the Houston Texans that aren't making the playoffs. So that's ultimately why I went with that decision over Will Anderson. But you mentioned it. Jalen Carter, as long as he gets the snaps, it's a crowded room in that defensive tackle room. Sure. But I think he is the best of the best in that room. And to that point, I think he deserves to get the most snaps out of anybody in that room. And if he gets those snaps, as you mentioned, he's going to produce. He's going to put up some wow moments, as you mentioned with Anthony Richardson. I think we'll see some wow moments with Jalen Carter as well and his physical presence. So love that pick. Some other guys, I went with 2 other corners to mention here, aside from Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. We saw a corner win it last year. It's very rare that happens. But these 2 guys are at least going to be put in position to where they're starting day one. They have the potential, they have the opportunity to go out there and make a name for themselves. So went a little bit out of the box there with Christian Gonzalez on the New England Patriots. It's Bill Belichick, right? It's the New England Patriot defense. They have a good pass rush. So there's room for Christian Gonzalez to look really good there if he can overtake that CB1 position over Jack Jones. And then Emmanuel Forbes, he's been getting a lot of hype out of, I believe it's the Commanders, and he's going to start opposite of Kendall Fuller. So room for him to impress there. Don't think these guys are going to ultimately win it. I do think it's going to be between the 2 top guys, but those were just a few guys that I wanted to mention. They'll have the opportunity to prove themselves.
One weird thing when it comes to these player awards, especially the rookie awards,
Yeah.
is it does deter me a little bit with the fact that Jalen Carter is an Eagle and they are predicted to, maybe win the NFC, get back to a Super Bowl, and one place for the Houston Texans, because not only is an edge rusher, have a little bit more of an advantage compared to rushing from getting your hand in the ground, the middle of the offensive line, everything like that.
Yeah.
Like, even if Jalen Carter is great this year, how much of that noise gets overlooked because of what's around him and the team's success compared
Okay,
to
so
if
you
Will
look at it from the opposite end.
Yeah,
You
like
think
what
that
like
might harm his
right,
case.
like what happens if Will Anderson, if the Texans stink, but Will Anderson has the most sacks on that defensive line, and Carter has the third most sacks on the Eagles line, even if it's 8, but it's the third most or fourth most, it gets overlooked because of what's around him.
That's fair. That's a fair way to look at it from the opposite end of the glass. Because I was thinking Jalen Carter, if he stands out on a defense
On
that's
a
filled
winning
with
team,
stars,
wow, oh yeah, I feel
he
you on that,
stands out compared to even Hassan
yeah,
Reddick. Hassan
right,
Reddick's on this team, and Jalen Carter's the guy
right.
standing out.
But are
So I'm
people
going
going to
from that
also
side, but yeah,
say
I
he
understand
gets
what you're
these
saying.
looks because Hassan Reddick is there? Will
Yeah.
Anderson does not have that. They put up similar numbers, similar
He's the
sack
only
totals.
guy on their defense that is really
on a bad
standing
team.
out. Yeah,
It's
I feel
interesting
you.
how they'll look at it, how they'll vote, man. But nonetheless,
All narratives.
for the rookie awards, Bijan Robinson, I have Anthony Richardson for the offensive rookies of the year, and we both have Jalen Carter for defensive rookies of the year.
Yep.
Coach of the year, man. Obviously, we were all polling for Nick last year, but who do you have as your coach of the year in 2023?
I have Matt Eberflus of the Chicago Bears winning the coach of the year, man. If they make the playoffs, if they win their division like I'm predicting them to, he will win the head coach of the year this year. And I do think it's just from where they're coming from. If they're able to get that 4 seed, that division lock, ultimately that is what will win him head coach of the year. That means he's done a great job. My other pick, if I want to make a more non sleeper pick, I'd probably go with Doug Peterson though. So yeah, those would be my 2 top guys. Some other guys I did think of: New Orleans head coach Dennis Allen. He's his first year. And then Robert Saleh. I think the Jets are going to have a great year too. So.
Good. So no one, you didn't mention that my pick. So listen, I applaud you. I applaud you for your rationale because it's the same. No, it's the same exact rationale that I have.
Yeah.
And it's funny because before the show, well, during our when we were doing our playoff predictions and standings, I think
I know where you're going here.
I said to you, my awards will make sense and align with some of these picks. Now you just aligned your NFC North division winner, and that's an upset with an upset coach because he got him there. I'm doing the same thing. Same division, brother. The Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell is my coach of the year this year because if they're the 4 seed, if he gets them back to the playoffs for the first time in a while, but that's my
reasoning.
Same rationale. If they win their division, I think either of those 2 coaches will be in
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. I would throw him, now that you said it, I would throw him in the mix with my picks here as well. I think he is a top 5 candidate to win that. Yeah.
I think the Saints, I think Dennis Allen is an interesting one as well because that division's so overlooked. And maybe that goes against him as well. Even if the Saints win that division and host a playoff game. Right. But to me, it also depends what they look like. What if the Saints, they have the easiest schedule in the NFL, I saw this morning. So what if the Saints win 12 games and win a playoff game?
Yeah.
That puts him in the conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's move on. Let's go offensive player of the year. All right. Who is I'll start with this one since we're kind of going back and forth here. My offensive player of the year here, I believe he's the second or first odds on favorite right now. It's a crowded room. I'm going to go with Ja'Marr Chase here, man.
Okay. Yeah, I thought about him for sure.
And the reason I have him here is because there just seems to be a lot of smoke in the area of Ja'Marr Chase having a bigger year than Justin Jefferson. Jamar
Yeah.
Chase's third year. Jamar, out of that, he didn't have a sophomore slump, but you know how some players get into a sophomore slump? He's past that. He's a veteran now, right? His third season with Joe Burrow. I just think Jamar Chase could have literally a type of year where maybe he goes for 1,500 yards aside from T. Higgins. Maybe he scores double-digit touchdowns this year. There's a lot of smoke in the Jamar Chase camp for him to have that year. Obviously, you're looking at CMC. My thing with CMC, can he stay healthy for a full season?
Yeah, that's a good
right?
point.
Justin Jefferson, did he had to have won it last year, correct?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So he wins it last year. Are they got, voters fatigue? Are they going to give it to that wide receiver again?
Right.
You could argue quarterback, right? Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, but I'll go with Jamar Chase here.
Yeah, I agree. I like to look at the offensive player of the year and give it to somebody different than quarterback because quarterback usually wins MVP.
Aligned with MVP, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I do like your pick there of Jamar Chase. I definitely contemplated him with my pick. CMC, same thing. I contemplated him. I agree, though. You made a good point. Is he going to stay healthy with how much usage I expect him to be used in that San Fran offense? Because I think he's going to be, once again, a safety valve for Brock Purdy, right? A lot of touches for CMC very early on in the season, I would imagine. Justin Jefferson, thought about him, like you said, voters fatigue. AJ Brown would be my sleeper, just because if Jalen Hurts has the season that I expect him to have, that means AJ Brown's probably having a top 5 wide receiver, if not top 3 wide receiver type of season as well. But I ultimately went with Tyreek Hill in this case. Okay. Coming off a great season last year, obviously. But the big thing for me is he had that great season. He had a ton of injuries and just nagging type of situations mixed in there. Getting adjusted to the Miami Dolphins offense, playing with Tua, then not playing with Tua, playing with Teddy Bridgewater, then whoever that other quarterback was for them last year. So hopefully, barring injuries such, Tua plays the whole season. You get that connection all year with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill stays healthy. I love what he can do in that Dolphins offense. Now, the other side of that conversation is Jalen Waddle, and it's like, is it Jalen Waddle's time to take that lead? You know what I mean? So there is an argument there. But I am going to go with Tyreek Hill, the veteran in that offense. And if I think the Dolphins are going to take this step to make the playoffs this year, I think Tyreek Hill will have to be a huge, huge part of that. But highly, highly dependent, as is the Dolphins in the 7th seed, on Tua's health, right? So
I like the pick, man. I contemplated it. The reason I steered away from Hill a little bit is my thinking of, like I said, I didn't pick the Dolphins to make the playoffs because I don't foresee Tua staying healthy, so that might hinder it. But also for the fact that he almost broke the record last year. Is that production going to keep up? Definitely could.
Right. Is he going to surpass what he did last year?
Exactly.
Right. I feel you. That's kind of how I felt with Justin Jefferson. He had 1,800 receiving yards last year. Is he going to do that again? Get 2,000?
Right.
I feel you there. I do get you there.
DPOY. I have an outside the box one, and it'll align with my division winners as well, my playoff predictions as well. But I'll throw it to you first.
Man, this one was the toughest one for me, honestly, because you can go in so many different directions.
You sure can. Do you want mine?
What?
Do you want mine?
Yeah, go ahead. It would make me feel a little bit more comfortable here.
Who do I have making it to the Super Bowl? The Jets?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Who is it? Quinnen Williams or Sauce?
Quinnen Williams is my defensive player of the year, man.
I like that.
It's an outside the box pick. He's plus 3,000 or something. He's not favored at all to win this award. Coming off a 12-sack year. And the reason I have him here, again, like I said, it aligns with my picks, right? I have them getting to the Super Bowl. If they're going to do that, that defense is going to be stout. It's going to be a top 2-3 unit in the league. And if he's the best player, if he's the premier guy on that line, he's coming off a 12-sack year. He wants to be the best defensive tackle in the league, he said. What if he goes for 14 and a half? And the Jets, I know that it's a regular season award. Well, what if the Jets win the division, right? And they're a top 2 seed? I have Quinnen Williams as my defensive player of the year.
I like that, man. I do. I love Quinnen
I couldn't keep it in anymore, man.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. But, Man, Sauce Gardner, he's another guy where it's like
Yeah.
it's not common that a CB would win it, but it wasn't common that a CB would win Defensive Rookie of the Year either. So you never know, but I do like the Quinnen Williams pick. I ultimately went with TJ Watt coming back, playing a full season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to be a catalyst on that defense. I think not seeing him last year, but then seeing him back this year and how dominant he will be, I think that could sway the voters and the look of it and the narrative of, oh, look how much of a difference TJ Watt makes when he's back in part of that defense. So that was kind of the part of the reasoning there. I know Nick Bosa's a popular pick. I think another guy in that defense is should be considered, right? Fred Warner, we talk about him all the time. I asked you in our last episode about, NFC and the playoffs and such. And we were talking about the Eagles linebacking core, and I asked you, like, who are the notable linebackers in the NFL? Fred Warner. I mean, he is the guy. And so when you stand out that much against the rest of your position group, I think that gives you a benefit of the doubt. He plays great coverage.
It definitely does.
Yeah, but
can a middle linebacker, that doesn't affect like the numbers aren't going to stand out. So is that going to weigh on voters at all?
Like, what's he have to do? Get 150 tackles? Like, that's where the questions come in. I think he can insert himself in the turnover battle, right? Force fumbles, interceptions, that type of thing. Maybe lead linebackers in interceptions or lead non-DBs in interceptions. Mix in a few sacks. That's a sleeper pick. That's my out of the box, but I would probably go with yours over him even. Micah Parsons, that's a common one. Son Reddick, he got up into that conversation last year as well. We'll see if he can continue that out. But there's plenty of options. I love your outside the box pick, though. I do love that because if the Jets get where you think they're going, and maybe not even get where you think they're going, like the Super Bowl,
but close.
If they're going to win their division, if they're going to be this top seed in the AFC, Quinnen Williams is going to be a huge part of that on the defensive end. So I do love that pick, man.
Exactly. All right, last award, man, and the biggest award, right? MVP.
Yes.
Who is your 2023 MVP, Scotty?
Guess. I went with Jalen Hurts, man. He didn't get it last year, and he's going to put up similar, if not better numbers. He's going to check that passing touchdown box for everybody this year. I think that's going to be the big difference for him. And I think it ultimately leads him to the MVP award. You're going to see the Eagles at the top of the NFC. He's going to be part of one of the most winningest teams in the NFL. And I think the numbers are going to go along with that. The Eagles go as Jalen Hurts goes. So I did go with him. My runner-up, man, I'm really looking at that Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson, bro. Like, he's already won an MVP, so there is some fatigue there, but I think it gets refreshed because he's got the new contract. So we forget about the MVP.
Let me just take it from here. My 2023 NFL MVP is Lamar Jackson. I do have Lamar winning this award, man. Again, and like I said, aligns, right? Who do I have as the number one seed in the AFC? The Baltimore Ravens. If they're going to get there, Lamar is going to do it. And I think it's interesting, man. I love the Jalen pick. I think he's going to be top 3 in voting. I want him to win it so badly. But when you mention, Jalen improving those passing totals, right? Those passing touchdowns that haters want to complain about. I think Lamar is going to do the same thing. I think it's going to be a little less focus on the run game, even though he and the Ravens are going to have that ability. But with these weapons and Mark Andrews and OBJ and Zay Flowers and a healthy Rashad Bateman, I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think that'll play a factor into his role. And I think he's just going to air it out more than he has before. And I think realistically, he's going to outdo his actual MVP season. Now, that doesn't always equate to the person winning the award, right? Yeah. But I think he'll definitely be an option here. But I just wanted to, a little bit of outside the box stuff, kind of equate it to how I have these teams finishing at the end of the year. Ravens, I have getting the 1 seed in the AFC. I have Lamar as the MVP. I have the Jets getting to the Super Bowl with a top defense. I have Quinnen Williams as the Defensive Player of the Year. I have the Lions breaking into the playoffs for the first time in forever. I have Dan Campbell as my Coach of the Year. So just some equating, some mathematics going on right there. You know what I mean?
I like it, man. I like it. Lamar is interesting. I agree with you. I think he comes with that same effect of just improve your passing numbers on, when we're looking at your team and have your team in the top 3 seedings in the AFC. And I think if guys like him, guys like Jalen Hurts can get out of that narrative of just a running quarterback, anything to further themselves from that narrative, I think that will equal a high chance at winning an MVP for both of them. So,
I agree, man.
I like the Lamar Jackson pick, man.
Those
should be
are...
interesting. I wonder which one of these awards is just going to blow us away and none of the people that we listed here on this show win it.
Ooh. Like, not only not win, but like we're way
not
off,
even
right?
Yeah, we were way off.
I'll go with Offensive Player of the Year. I'll say that you and I both went the wide receiver route. Tyreek and Jamar Chase. And I think either a quarterback, like, all right, and I know this wouldn't even make sense because how does he not win it? But if Lamar wins MVP, does Jalen win Offensive Player of the Year? Vice versa.
Right.
I don't even know how they can vote that way because
Yeah.
wouldn't he just be the Offensive Player of the Year? But that's how the award gets voted on, right? Like, Justin Jefferson won Offensive Player of the Year. He didn't win MVP.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes won MVP. He didn't win Offensive Player of the Year.
Right.
So I don't know how it really works out that way, but maybe something like that. Like maybe a quarterback, maybe CMC as a running back does win it. I don't know.
It's interesting. No, Offensive Player of the Year is where my mind went. Offensive Rookie of the Year, like if Bryce Young has a crazy year and wins Rookie of the Year, I think
we could both be way off on Coach of the Year. Like if the Vikings win 11 games and win that division, and the Bears and the Lions, miss the playoffs, we're both going to be way off. But
Sean Payton out in Denver, right? Like he'll be a popular pick if they're able to get up into playoff talk as well.
Right.
So it's a lot of options, and you never know what team is going to come out of the blue.
If the Seahawks have that kind of leap year, could Pete Carroll be in the conversation?
Pete Carroll, if they can challenge
what does Nick have to do to be in the conversation? Like, are they just – that's my one thing, man. Like, that's what's so funny about these awards. They kind of give it to not the underachievers, but they give it to the lesser teams that overachieved, like we're doing with the Lions and the Bears, than the great teams that just achieved status, right? Like
they're supposed to.
When Nick Sirianni loses one game with his starting quarterback and gets the number 1 seed and went from a 7 seed the year before, how is he not the Coach of the Year?
Right. And that's what leads me to believe if he didn't win it last year, he's just not going to win it.
Yes,
so
I agree.
That's why I didn't pick Sirianni. I think there's a little bit of
bro.
I think there's a little bit of bias there too, man.
I'll throw another one to you.
Yeah,
Mike Tomlin. If the Steelers can sneak into a playoff spot, I think Mike Tomlin's going to be in that conversation again as well.
Who the hell is the Browns head coach?
Is it Kevin Stefanski?
He was. I don't want to. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. He was the last one that I know of.
I believe it's still okay. Yeah, it's Kevin Stefanski.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's a great point as well. I picked the Browns being the 7th seed. They can, he could be in the conversation as well. But those are our 2023-2024 NFL Player Award predictions, guys. Have a great rest of your night.